podcast. Socialite for Consciousness, instigator of possibilities. And are you willing to make a demand? So this is your Tuesday tip for this week. I was looking at some things, just asking questions about choices and what I would like to create. And I was actually flipping through some different books, just looking for some ideas. And the word demand was put in front of me. And, I realized that whenever I'm really willing to make a demand to change something is when I receive the greatest change. When you're willing to make a demand, you're demanding that the universe shows you something different and shows you something beautiful, and it allows things to show up with more ease than you could possibly imagine. In my own life, when I've actually made these demands, it changes things. And how many of you aren't willing to truly demand to change something in your life? It could be your money situation, it could be relationship, business situation, work situation, relationships, anything. But if you actually take a look and look at if you're willing to demand that it changes. A lot of times we think that making a demand in our life is like something awful, or we judge what we would actually like to truly choose and to truly have in our life and as our life. But when you're willing to truly make that demand, you are allowing the universe, you're telling the universe, okay, I'm ready for this to happen. I'm ready for change. Show me what I need to be or do different that will create this right away. And, I look at, for example, my apartment that I have, and I'll tell you guys a story another time or come to a class. I often tell this story in classes because, for me to find the apartment that I have here in the city, which I love and adore, and I have amazing views, and it's not the biggest apartment, it's not the smallest apartment, but it's a space that I really enjoy and my body is really happy in. And when I was looking for a new place to live, and I was in Brooklyn at the time, I spent a long time running around the city, and it wasn't that fun for me. I was in 90-degree heat running around, and I said, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. Universe, show me something beautiful. Show me where my body wants to be. Show me where my dog, I had my dog at the time, show me where he wants to be. What will be the greatest contribution to me and my body? And what space can I be in that could be the greatest contribution? And I asked these different questions, but I demanded. I said, okay, I am not running around. Show me a place for me that my body wants to be and to live with more ease than I could possibly imagine. And I literally stopped looking for an apartment, and I stayed in the question, and I asked all these different questions that I talk about here on this podcast and in my classes, and these wonderful tools of Access Consciousness. And I stayed in the questions, and I stayed using these tools, or I just would be these tools. And this apartment just showed up for me. I have to tell you that I never looked at another apartment until I walked in the door of this apartment, and it just showed up with more ease than I could have possibly imagined. And when you're willing to make a demand, it allows for this change. It allows things to show up for you. I at one point chose to take on some panic attacks, and again, come to my classes, read some other blogs and things that I have out there where I talk about changing these things. But just briefly, I knew that wasn't me, and that I knew that I could change anything. And when I made the demand for it to change, everything showed up for that change to come to fruition in my life. I follow the energy. I asked questions, and I chose to go to a class with Dr. Dane here, and it was an ESB class. And at that class, I asked a question, and he gave me facilitation, and it changed. It just changed. And it changed right away. And I never had another panic attack again. It wasn't ever something that was a part of me or a part of my body, but I made the demand that it was changing. I said, universe, this isn't me, and this is changing, because I am not going to live like this. And I made a demand. And that demand allowed for all of these things to show up for me. And it's the same thing with relationships. I knew that I wasn't choosing for me and what I wanted to create with my body and my being in relationships in my life, especially that with men or people that I copulate with. And I had something go on, and I said, okay, that wasn't me. What's really going on here? And I made a demand for that to change. And the same thing, classes showed up, people showed up, questions showed up for me to go, okay, what would I really like to choose here? And I made a demand that changed, and it's allowed for me to create some really fun things in my life. And I've been looking at money, some places where I'd like to change some things in my business, and where I'm not really demanding, and I'm just kind of going, okay, well, what would I like to choose? What would I like to choose? But I noticed that I hadn't made that demand, and with money as well. And I, talk about changing it, and I say, okay, I'd like to have this, but I know that in certain areas I haven't truly made a demand. So I'm making a demand in these other areas of my life now, and I'm wondering, what will it take for you to make a demand? Like, really look at some areas of your life you would like to change, and you could choose the smaller changes at first, but practice making a demand and demanding that these things show up and that these areas of your life change where you would like to change, and ask for what you would truly like to have, whether it's in a relationship, in business, with money, with your body, but make a demand. And again, begin with some of the smaller things if that's more ease for you before you start with the big things. But begin to make demands of the universe, of yourself, that the things that you would truly like to that you would truly like to change will change. And see what shows up. Again, allow it some time. Sometimes the change is instant. Sometimes it's going to take months. It took a couple of months for my apartment to show up. But I made the demand. I never wavered from the demand. And I be the tools of access consciousness. I use these tools. I asked questions every day. And I never allowed any obstacle to come in my way. I asked another question. And when you truly want to make a demand, and we're going to talk more about choice and change, and I talk about questions all the time, and, but you have to start by making a demand. You don't have to do anything, but, if you truly want something to change, you have to acknowledge that you want to change it, and you have to make a demand, and you have to be clear with the universe as to what you would like to show up, how much money you would like to show up. And truly what will be a contribution as well to you, your body, and to the world. So start practicing, make some demands, and start with one at a time. If that's more ease, sometimes, and it's not to have focus, but it's to stay with the awareness of what you would truly like to create in your life. So make some demands. And if you start judging yourself, just get the awareness that you're judging yourself for what you would like to choose and what you would like to have, in your life. And just keep asking questions. Interesting point of view if you start to judge yourself. So many questions. You can listen to the other podcast for those questions, but I just want to give you this tool. Start making a demand. Make a demand as to how you would like your life to show up and what you would like to truly create in your life. So that's all for Tuesday's tip. Stay tuned for another podcast this week. I have a lot of fun things that I would like to talk about, especially as we move forward into this new world as the different cities, our different states, and our different countries begin to open up. So have an amazing day. Practice this tool, and I will talk to you on the next podcast. And catch me on social media. And don't forget to visit my website, HaleyMarie.nyc. Ciao for now.